We're going. Sorry, boys. Am I muted?
No, no, you're good.
Oh, we're live.
Yes, we are.
We're going. Sorry, boys.
Are we?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Alrighty. Well, my greetings and welcome to episode 2 of the Tempo Cast. I am your host Nocturne and joined here today by the Camch and Too Bad. Welcome, guys.
Glad to be here, finally.
It has been a long run. We had a few technical difficulties this morning. Things like this don't always seem to go perfectly when you want them to, but, you know, we're here now, and that's what counts, right?
Exactly.
Well, what a time to be alive. Today, or this week, has been a big week for Hearthstone. We have had the release of Hearthstone on mobile. We've had the third wing of Blackrock Mountain come out, and the changing meta that goes along with that. Maybe we'll start with the mobile, though. Have you guys played it on mobile?
Oh, yeah. I played a lot of mobile this week. It runs really, really well. I just have the iPhone 5, and I was surprised because I have the iPad mini, and it runs really poorly on that, and I downloaded it on my iPhone, and I was like, wow, it runs really, really smoothly. Honestly, comparable to my computer, which is like, it's old, but it was, you know, at the time, pretty expensive, so I'm very satisfied. I've been playing the hell out of it in school, too, so, you know, less good grades, but I'm getting higher in the ladder, so that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, don't tell my boss, but the mobile app is the reason why I'm spending 45 minutes a time in the bathroom. I do not have constipation. It's mostly just the Hearthstone. But yeah, I'm loving it. It's actually, for some reason, I have a really, really shitty tablet, and it actually runs better on my phone than on my tablet, so go figure. But I really love the UI. I think they've done, you know, when I heard that they were releasing it on mobile, I thought that there would be some challenges with fitting everything in a much smaller screen. But to me, what they've done with it, like for people that haven't played it, your hand is sort of in the bottom right, and you tap on the hand to bring it up, and that sort of just saves a whole bunch of space there. So yeah. I really like the way they've done that, and then the whole menu system I think works really well as well. Camp,
Yeah,
how did you find it?
It's been pretty nice. I've been playing a little bit on my Android. It's actually easier for me to play at work and school on a laptop, just because it's like, oh, I'm working, or oh, I'm taking notes. But it's been really nice, like on the bus, car rides, etc. And I'm really more happy for just that a lot of people who don't like have access to a PC or don't usually play PC games are starting to play it. That's what I'm really excited for with the mobile version.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like the main point for me. The sudden influx of new players that we're going to get from this is like, it's going to be massive. We're already seeing posts on the Reddit, the subreddit about you know, I'm a new player and can you answer my questions, and we're just seeing a whole bunch of new people exposed to this game that haven't been before, so I'm really excited about that.
No, it's super exciting. Honestly, actually, surprisingly, one of the biggest things I thought that would be an issue is data usage for people with like limited plans and stuff. But and this is purely based off of a Reddit thread, so it could be completely wrong. But it only uses something like 35 KBs or something like that for each game, which is like really low. That's really, really good for a mobile game. So you can play feasibly a pretty huge amount of games and not even see a dent in your data plan.
Absolutely. It's not, the data is very minimal usage for me. The main thing is the battery. It's taking about 7 or 8% per game, which means that you can't play for sort of longer than 45 minutes, as I found out on the bathroom.
My iPhone battery is pretty alright. I've actually had to start bringing my charger with me places because Hearthstone does drain it, but it's not much more than like any other app that I've been experiencing. But I mean, you know, it definitely could be better, but to a certain extent, it looks amazing and it runs amazing, so I don't have a ton of complaints.
Right.
Captain Planet TV was talking about in Twitch chat that there's apparently a bug where you can cause any match to draw on mobile. If you close the game, restart, and come back, you can cause a match to draw, and that apparently lets you draw matchups. I don't know how often that happens or how accurate that is, but if that is true, that's definitely something they're going to want to work on, and there are going to be a lot of bugs with mobile. Like, there's also the UI. It's pretty easy to fireball yourself in the face.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me. I was actually playing on my computer, and he had a Major Domo out. I had just played Boom, and then he BGH'd his own Major Domo. And at first I was like, that is maybe a good play because he's giving himself the hero power, and then I just realized that he had misclicked. Probably a phone user.
Classic.
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as like getting new players into the game, I think the popularity of Hearthstone is just going to explode from here. I remember I heard Reynad talking about the reason why he started streaming Hearthstone was because he heard that it was going to eventually be adapted for a mobile platform. And the number of new people that exposes you to is massive. There's something different about being on mobile, I think, just in terms of the average consumer's perception.
Oh, yeah.
If you we have a lot of housewives and stuff playing Farmville and sort of casual games on mobile, and I think Hearthstone is casual enough that it could be picked up by that demographic. So I think the number of people that are just going to start playing it is going to be massive. Do we think it's going to affect the game in any way? Like the future sort of path for Hearthstone?
I think the top tier isn't going to see like a huge influx of new people now. I think it's going to stay relatively the same, but I think lower down you'll obviously have a lot more people. Arena will be like a feeding ground for, I'm sure, a couple more months to come because you just get a bunch of random new people. But I think the impacts are going to be just strictly things like more viewership, because obviously we're going to have more people playing the game. One of the biggest things I thought was really impactful about the Hearthstone release on the iPhone or the App Store, any App Store in general, was the fact that it's kind of, I know a lot of people won't agree with this, but it's a relatively healthy free-to-play game in that they give you the tools to play. They don't limit your play every like a lot of these other very cancerous types of iPhone games, and that's going to draw a lot of people because they're like, oh, I can play this game as much as I want, and there's no restriction on it, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really gonna.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's really gonna affect the community as well, because you get what I like to call the Skyrim effect, where all the previous Elder Scrolls games for people who had them were played in a pretty tight-knit community, and then Skyrim came out, and you have all these people asking like, when is Skyrim 2 coming out? God, this is the great game. Who is this developer? But Bethesda, like, it's so great. And so with Hearthstone, like, I was just walking through the halls the other day, and someone was drafting an arena, and like 2 kids started arguing about like how one was ranked 20 and the other was ranked 19 because they both just downloaded the other day.
That's awesome.
So you have a lot of people like learning about Hearthstone, but at the same time, you might get different perceptions and different. Like, even if you read the app reviews in the App Store, it's like, this game is so addicting, I wish it had come out sooner. Like, so many new people that is definitely going to change the perception, and like the subreddit is probably going to grow. People are probably going to like, there's going to be a lot more like spammy posts about like, help, I'm a noob, and like things like that. There's definitely going to be a lot of new players, so it could be both good and bad.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, to be honest. My article this week for tempestorp.com, shameless plug, is going to be about teaching a new player to play, and I think it's going to be timely because, you know, we are going to be seeing so many new players. I think it's really valuable to your own sort of your own thinking about Hearthstone to teach someone new to play. You get to sort of revisit a lot of things that you've taken for granted for such a long time, and I think it's good to just see this sudden influx of people, honestly.
Oh yeah, it's gonna do a lot of good for the scene, I think, which is nice, you know.
Cool. So third wing of Blackrock Mountain, the latest bunch of content to come out. We didn't focus too much on PvE last week, but how did you guys go with the bosses?
I really, about same as last week, just kind of like one-shot it all through. For the most part, that I actually did make a deck for the dude who has the 1 mana cost for all the minions. That was super fun, and so I played a bunch. I didn't do a lot of strategy, I just played Warlock, because I'm dumb, and I thought, oh, I can just keep tapping into guys, right? And then I realized you only have 1 mana, but, I mean, it didn't end up mattering because I just played Giants and Sneeds and Kel'Thuzad, and eventually you'll just win.
Yeah, I think just like all of the other bosses, the normal setting is pretty easy. The heroic I found incredibly frustrating. There was a lot of RNG. It didn't feel like skill to me. I don't see like building a new deck every week and me putting like mind control tech and big game hunters in it like is particularly fun. Like I was really frustrated with this week's heroics, to be honest, and I got a bit fed up with it.
This week's heroics, the one mana dude, there was actually a pretty interesting strategy. A lot of people have probably already seen it on Reddit, where you only play Major Domo and Deathwing. You mulligan heavily for Deathwing, and then you hope that your opponent mind games you, pulls Major Domo, and you play Deathwing. Their Major Domo dies, puts them at 8 mana, and it gets rid of their hero power, so they can no longer play any of their expensive things. Their hero power can't kill Deathwing, and you basically wing. He also plays Jiraxis, but that locks you out of the game because then you can't cast anything, and he makes a bunch of 6/6s. But I think that one had a lot of strategy and was pretty fun. The other two a little bit less so. But, you know, some wings are going to be better than others in terms of how fun the heroics are.
I actually steered clear of the heroics because I heard that they were really, really frustrating, and I was just like, why would I do that when I can just get frustrated on ladder instead, you know?
Fair enough. I think it's interesting, Camps, that you mentioned that particular one, because to me that's interesting as an intellectual puzzle, but then the actual implementation of going through, you know, 5 games where you're having to mulligan for Deathwing and then auto concede when you don't get it, like that's not fun to me. I don't get any value out of that. I like the idea of them going, here's a hero, you know, think about defeating it and then you build a deck, but the actual you know, execution of it to me just is boring. And if you read what they've talked about with what they have designed the bosses to be, they've said they're designed to be tough, unique, and interesting encounters that introduce new strategic elements, forcing you to change how you play. Yeah, I beat the first couple on normal with Face Hunter, and then like I definitely changed the way I played, but it was just involved a lot more screaming than usual.
Yeah.
One thing I've seen suggested is that they make the heroic bosses like a lot harder, but then they let you they either let you mulligan for basically anything in your deck, or they somehow implement it so you get multiple mulligans, and basically you just have to figure out the right combination of cards to beat them, and then you get to select through it. The only problem with that is basically once someone figures it out, they just post it, and then you could do it yourself. So it's a fine line to walk between like having to repeat it and get good RNG, but also between just like not having it be a challenge at all.
Yeah, but if someone posts it online and you are already Googling how to defeat a heroic boss that should be a unique encounter that you are enjoying yourself, then that's kind of your own problem, I guess. Like if you want to cheat at like a single player PvE thing, then like by all means go ahead.
Yeah.
I have no interest in doing something like that. Like I enjoy the intellectual, you know, pursuit of trying it out myself at the very least. But
so smart.
Yeah. Stop it. Come on, guys. But yeah, like you know, you're really just cheating yourself there, aren't you?
Yeah. At that point, there's a lot of other single player games like that where people are like, they cheat and then they're like, wow, look at me, I'm really OP because I cheated. I'm like, oh, sweet, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, like if the heroic bosses are giving you that much trouble, like at the end of the day, it's a card back that you're missing out on. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Who really cares? All right. So the cards that we actually got from it, though, what do we think of them? The first one, let's just go in some sort of order, make like a professional outfit. Core Rager, which is the new Hunter card. It is 4 mana for a 4/4. Battle Cry, gain +3/+3 if your hand is empty.
Yeah, this card's wild. You know, I've actually never seen it played. I saw it played against me from the bosses, but that's it. I haven't seen it on ladder once. For good reason too. I think it's really situational. Things like Quick Shot, especially in the Hunter class, are already so situational. Yet it's such a good card. So why would someone play something like Core Rager where it's basically a 4 mana 4/4 or get killed by a BGH? You know.
This card is actually almost worse than just a vanilla 4/4 because it either encourages bad deck building or poor play decisions. So if you want to build a deck around this where you dump your hand to make it big, then once it gets BGH silenced or killed, your deck is a bunch of 1-drops or fast cards, and it's not going to do much, even in Face Hunter. If you play this in Face Hunter, then you try to dump your Owls, your Quick Shots, and then you're not winning because you're not using those cards correctly to burn them out. If you play this in Mid Hunter, you're never going to have cards to dump, and once you run out of cards, you lose. So basically, no matter what you do with this card, it's just pretend it's a 4/4 and it'll be better for you. And you don't want to play a 4/4 Beast because you have a 5/4 Beast. Lost Tall Strider. Best card.
Oh yeah.
That's much better. That's a much better card. Yeah, I totally agree with that assessment. I think that they're really pushing this mechanic of if your hand is empty for Hunter, and that's the most interesting thing about this card for me. I think we'll see a lot more cards with that sort of condition that you have to fill. But yeah, it either, like, if you're in Arena, for instance, and you're in top deck mode, like, it's a useful 7/7, and the 4 mana doesn't even really matter. Like, why wouldn't you just play a 7/7 for 7? Because once you're in top deck mode, you usually have a whole bunch of mana anyway.
Best case scenario for it is like Arena 7/7, and even then you're just like, it doesn't even do that much. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I totally agree with what you said about deck building. I don't think we're going to see decks built around this, and it kind of needs to be built around to get anything out of it. And do you even want that?
No, you don't want that.
No, you don't. It was a rhetorical question, but thanks for answering it anyway. Dragon Consort, which is the new Paladin card. It is 5 mana for a 5/5. Battle Cry, the next dragon you play costs 2 mana less.
Yeah, this card surprised me because I really thought that dragon decks weren't going to see play. This was like the first amazing dragon that's was kind of released. And I like I was saying, I didn't think dragons were going to see play, but then I started seeing this deck coming up on ladder, the Dragon Paladin, and I was like, whatever, it's not that good, right? And then on the next turn comes like a 3 mana Azure Drake, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then it starts to kind of lay in how strong this card can actually be. It's good. It's really good. It's a 5 mana 5/5 base draw and innervate. Personally, I haven't used it. I don't quite believe in the dragon deck yet, but I'm excited for it. You know, I think dragon decks are gonna be pretty cool, and this card is gonna be a staple in them, at least for Paladin.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of worried because both Kibler and Sjo were playing Dragon Paladin on stream, and both of them had like greater than 50% win rates. We don't have Blackwing Corruptor yet. We don't have Volcanic Drake yet. We don't have like Chromagus yet. There's so many cards that are good dragons that are missing, and yet the deck's already doing so well. So I actually think the deck will be very good, possibly too good once all those cards come out. And Dragon Consort definitely limits the things you can do. Probably Paladin's going to be the best dragons deck, and it'll be a very good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's interesting that they decided to make it a Paladin card. Why do you think they would choose Paladin as the sort of flagship dragon brand, I guess?
Yep, I was thinking about that too, and I can't find a good answer because no class has such a blatantly amazing dragon card. It kind of just seems like, you know, Paladin got a lot of love in GVG. It wasn't like they were exactly hurting for anything, so someone at Blizzard must just be incredibly Paladin biased, I think, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, look, I think we've already said it, I think it's very strong. It raises an interesting question about the sort of release schedule, because we're sort of getting these cards in dribs and drabs, and to me, like, you're not enabling this deck until week 4. So watching people play around with it at the moment is really interesting. I think, yeah, I was watching Kibler play yesterday, and he was only playing 5 dragons, and it was still doing well. So once we get those other dragons, it's, you know, those cards that rely on that synergy are just going to be so much more stronger.
Yep.
Right. Dragon Egg, which is in neutral. It is 1 mana, 0/2. Whenever it takes damage, summon a 2/1 whelp. Whelp.
I do not get this card. I've had it played against me, and I'm like, oh, wow, all right, and then I can just ignore it. Like, it's just strictly a worse Nerubian Egg because you still need an activator, and it only produces a 2/1 instead of a 4/4. I mean, it is 1 less mana cost, but you're sacrificing 2 health or 2 damage and 3 health. It's just not, it doesn't even seem worth it to me. You can just AoE it down, and you're like, oh god, a 2/1, no, and then, you know, you can choose when to destroy it, so that 2/1 isn't really going to be affecting you that much. But admittedly, I think I got into some situations where I was ahead and it was being played from behind. I'm sure if it's played from ahead, it can be maybe strong. I don't know.
So the thing is, like, Warrior has the most pinging effects, but then, like, when you Whirlwind, you suicide all the whelps, so that's not a thing. I think the only place this card could be really strong is you play this on turn 1, turn 2, you coin Velen's Chosen onto it, and you start healing your whelp factory up. The only problem with that is Priest is, like, already the class with all those strong turn 3 plays with, like, Blade Master Circle, Blade Master, and then you resurrect it, things like that. So if you're putting all these cards in a priest deck, it'll have no late game, and basically you just have to mulligan into a strong turn 3 play. And this card doesn't work with any other card in the deck. Maybe Auctionized Circle. Then you get a 2/1 for 1, the value. But like, this card just is so bad when not drawn with other cards. Unlike Nerubian Egg, which really does a good job of protecting from AOE. It's not consistent enough to see play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And even those 2/1 whelps you're creating in a priest deck, you can't heal them at all. So I don't see much value there. I've seen a zoo list running it, just because you can call it scrambled eggs. I think that's great. And chuck them, chuck this and then the Nerubian egg in as well. I think the point you make though about being the significant body for the 2-drop is that's much more important. And to me, having this sort of mechanic as a 1-drop, and then it can't be activated till at least turn 2, probably turn 3 or 4. Do you want a 2/1 at turn 3 or 4? Like, the fact that it comes, the effect takes that long, to me, it's just not valuable to having a 2/1 in the mid game.
Definitely.
Or even 2. Okay. Twilight Whelp. This is a dragon. It is in priest. 1 mana for a 2/1. Its battle cry is, if you're holding a dragon, gain +2 health.
I saw this card and I was like, no, you know what? 1 mana 2/3, it's pretty good. And then I realized you can just do Zombie Chow and it's like the same thing. So it's a more situational Zombie Chow. Admittedly, it is a dragon, so you can get like little things like, I top deck a, what is it called? Twilight Whelpling? Yeah, I can top deck a Twilight Whelp, and now I can use my Rend. But it just doesn't seem consistent enough or strong enough. Like, why would you do that over Zombie Chow?
See, this is one of the reasons why I thought the holding a dragon mechanic should have read if you're holding a dragon or if you control a dragon, because then it would make the early dragons like this and Fairy Dragon want to see more play, right? Because most of the time you're not going to be holding this unless, like you said, you top deck it, because you're going to want to play it early.
That sounds very complicated to me. That sounds as complicated as having like 10 deck slots. I'm not sure I could have dealt with that as a player.
Did you say 10 deck slots?
Yeah, sorry. I don't mean to confuse all the viewers out
my
there,
brain
but
just started hemorrhaging because of the idea. I can't do that.
Okay, maybe let's just try and focus on this card. I think it's weird that they decided to print, basically the same card that we already have. To me, Zombie Chow is way better. And the reason being that if you, the dragons start at sort of 4 mana, and if you are making your mulligan decisions, it really, can stuff up your curve having to try and play around this card. Like, if you're keeping a 4 mana dragon, a 9 mana dragon, what do you throw away because it's going to be a dead card, and what do you keep to try and activate this? I think it just makes your hands really awkward.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Warbot, the 1 mana 1/3 with Enrage +1 damage on the warrior, where you see it, you're like, oh, it's a mech, it's got Enrage, look at all that synergy, and then you kind of sets in how terrible it actually is, and then you're like, okay, well.
Yep. I actually got Shrek'd by a deck running, it dropped 2 of these, and then a whole bunch of dragons, the Blackwing Technician. Actually, I don't think I saw any dragons above 5 mana, but because he actually, just killed me within 6 turns.
Oh, wow.
So,
but that's the dream,
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was the dream, but I don't think that's the 1% of games.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a Druid card here, Volcanic Lumberer.
Oh, what
it is 9 mana for a 7/8 taunt. It costs 1 mana less for each creature that died this turn.
In a world where everyone plays token decks, token rogue, token druid, this card would be amazing, but that is a world that will probably never exist, so this card until then will not see play, because it's not strong enough. A 7/8 for 9 mana, assuming you don't kill anything, which doesn't usually happen, but that's terrible on its own, and the reduction of stats is just too high of a cost, unlike the greatest card in the game, Volcanic Drake.
Are you telling me you don't believe in the 9 mana combo to turn everything into a 2/2 Treant, and Starfall, and then dump 2 of these for free?
I know.
Think about the
tempting.
value.
That is a lot of value. That's like a lot of value, but it's not enough.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Priest doesn't have like, sorry, Druid doesn't have like any super good board clear. Swipe is good, but it's not killing too many creatures at once. Maybe 2, 3 max if you get lucky, or unless you're playing it the token deck or like Fixer. So like Mage that has Flame Strike is really gonna love Volcanic Drake because you get a Flame Strike then dump them. Whereas with this, it's pretty hard to cheat them out super early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card is not going to get played in Constructed. I think it's almost purely an arena card, and I think it's going to do very well there.
Yeah.
Even at 9 mana for a 7/8 taunt, like that's going to be fine. And you will, if you draw it early or if you have it in your hand, I think you'll find a situation where you can get it out for 5, 6, 7 mana, and then it's just pure value.
Yeah, and you get these mass AoE clears more often in arena than you do in Constructed. I guess debatably, but yeah.
Well, you want to trade a lot more in arena, so
absolutely.
there's pretty much 1 or at least 2 creatures dying every turn. So
yeah, 7 mana, 7/8 doesn't look too bad, you know. That's just 2
it's
minions
a big
dying.
body. There's it's not a BGH meta, so I think it'll do very well in arena. But yeah, for Constructed, I don't really see it seeing much play. It needs a new deck, that's for sure. It's not going to fit into an existing archetype at the moment. So yeah, someone might come up with something for this, but I'm certainly not going to try it because I don't think it's worth the effort.
Druid of Flame, Volcanic Lumber. It's going to happen.
You heard it here first, guys. You heard it here first. And now, lastly, the legendary. It is Rend Blackhand, 7 mana, 8/4, with the battle cry, if you're holding a dragon, destroy a legendary minion.
Second only to Major Domo. This card I think is very situationally good. The fact that it can kill something like Ysera just instantly is great, but the 8/4 body I think holds it back miles for me. I wouldn't play a card like this, but I'm a little more conservative with my deck building. I think someone who aims to really wreck in the late game and consistently draw your cards, this obviously in a dragon deck, this could see a lot of play, definitely, in those kind of archetypes.
Yeah, when I was reviewing this card for Tempo Storm, I said that the best use for this would be to kill itself, so it's a shame that the battle cry can't target itself. I'm going to have to eat my words a little bit, just because when I reviewed it, it was before Thaurissan was spoiled, and this is the best response to Thaurissan. When they play Thaurissan on 6 and you play this on 7, it's a huge tempo swing. You eliminate one of the most game-breaking cards and build the board at the same time. That's one of the problems with Thaurissan, right? You can't kill it and build the board in the same time to counteract all the cards they can play for free.
Yeah.
This lets you do that. So in the Dragon Paladin deck, Kibler's been playing it a lot. I played it on stream and kept a counter of when it was good, when it was trash, and they were about 50-50. So I think the card could definitely see play as tech, especially since Thaurissan coming down on turn 6 is like the new Dr. Boom coming down on turn 7.
Yeah, I actually think it's quite good. It obviously requires your deck to activate it. You have to be playing a dragon deck, or at least have some number of dragons. I think we saw, as I said, I was watching Kibler play his dragon deck yesterday, and he had 5 dragons in there. And there were a number of times where he drew it, desperately needed to kill the Lotheb, or something like that, but he just didn't have the dragon in hand. So it looks really bad when it's bad, but when it's good, it is a massive tempo swing and a very good card for that. So again, I think it'll be played in the decks, and I think it'll have that home for sure.
Yeah.
When you were playing with it, Camp, did you find that the body was a bit of a liability? Like it's dying to Shredder and Swipe?
Well, usually, if they didn't have a huge board, usually when you play, because if they have a huge board and then they play a legendary, you're usually going to be behind enough where no card's going to save you. Swipe did kill it a few times. BGH I found wasn't a ton of a problem, because if they BGH it, I just follow up with Dr. Boom or Rag or something, and then I'm all good there. So it's good if they use BGH on something with 4 health, because then you get to play something even bigger and then they don't have their BGH. It does die sometimes, but that's an inherent risk of the card. It'd probably be too good if it never died.
Right.
I did also keep a counter of times it was better than BGH, and pretty much all those times was just when they had a Thaurissan. So this is like the anti-Thaurissan tech card. And other than that, if Thaurissan didn't exist or people stopped playing it, this card would be bad.
Stop playing Thaurissan. Classic. Good joke. That's why we've got you on the podcast. Yeah, I think there's a massive difference between 4 health and 5. You know, there are just so many more things that kill you at 4 health than at 5. And if it had 5 health, it would be like I would be raving about this card. But I think the fact that it has 4 just makes it kind of pretty good.
Yep.
Rightio. So, have we been playing with these cards at all? Have you been putting them in decks? Have you been? What have you been seeing on the ladder?
Like I was saying, I'm a little more conservative with my deck building, so I will I'll lean back, let other people do the dirty work, try it, what works, and then I'll pick up what they do and try and alter it to how I play. But for the most
So
part,
what dirty work did you pick up this week?
Trump tried some stuff. I was like, oh, you know, cute stuff, but it doesn't end up working most of the time. Things like really, and Ladder did a lot of the experimentation for me too. Like when I saw that guy play Dragon Egg, you can easily tell, okay, Dragon Egg is bad because of this, and so I'm not going to play it because of this, and etc. But yeah, I really haven't touched any of the cards this week yet because they're just not stupidly good enough for me to play. Except Dragon Consort, but like I said, I'm waiting for the other dragons.
Yeah, me too. I love dragons. I love playing big creatures. I cannot wait for all of them to come out so that I can play with them. I'm really hesitant to throw a deck together and build like a half dragon deck because I feel like if it loses or doesn't do well, then I'm just going to get discouraged and not want to play them. So I'm just going to wait for all of them to come out at once because I feel like that's the best way to go about it.
Yep.
So in the meantime, I'm playing Thaurissan Druid, little bit of Face Hunter, and then probably the only sort of innovation that I've tried out this week is it's sort of a mid-range Warlock Zoo list, demons, and then I'm playing Sacrificial Pact.
Oh, you're a wild dude.
Which I know, pretty wild. The reason why I was playing it because it just pretty much auto wins any deck that plays Jiraxxus. So you've got 1 out of 9 decks. It is really good against. Well, hang on, just hear me out. So it's really good against Mage, who plays if they play Mirror Entity, because then you can just sort of play a demon and kill that off. It's
Counterspell. It's really good against that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, I'm joking and I'm not joking. Like that, I would have tossed that if I had Counterspell. You know.
Totally understand. Yeah, no, it's a free get rid of Counterspell card, and if they've got Counterspell up, then you probably don't want the card anyway, so it's fine to get rid of it like that. And I found it useful versus Hunter because I'm playing Implosion and the Imp gang boss, so I've got a lot of 1/1 demon imps out there, and gaining the 5 health is massive. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that card because I've been enjoying it. I was playing 2, but I've gone down to 1. So it's useful as just like a 1 out of. It's kind of like a Kezan Mystic or something because it just like wins you a couple of matchups and then it can be kind of okay in other games. And Camp, maybe you had some input on this. Noticing some faces over there.
Yeah, I've actually been playing 2 Totemic Might in my Shaman because it's really good against explosive traps. That's a 1 in 9 chance to win.
Fuck off.
So
Fuck
good.
off.
It's a hard counter, dude. It's really good.
No,
Against Hunter instantly wins the matchup, dude. Every time.
I could see you, but I definitely think playing 2 is too many. If you want to play 1, Zoo is pretty prevalent in the meta, and while it doesn't play Jiraxxus, killing Mal'Ganis is obviously a really powerful swing, and it's good against Hunter and things like that. I just don't agree with you morally because you're risking every win just to screw your opponent over. Be like, ha, I got you. It's
and
like
the shock value, man.
It's so good when it works, though.
Oh, yeah.
It is so good. They're just like, I am Jiraxxus, Eridar, Lord of the Burning Legion. And you're like, fuck you. This is a 0 mana spell. Die.
I'm gonna take this gnome with a book and I'm gonna kill you. There you go. And then.
No, but yeah, once I started, like, as I just described it, like, once I started thinking of it as like a Kezan Mystic or, you know, almost even a BGH or a Black Knight or one of those cards that just sort of hoses a certain strategy, I did see, I thought that it was useful as a one-off. It doesn't give the body that those cards do, so I totally understand that they're a little bit different, but I liked it. I've liked it as a tech card so far.
Yeah, I actually...
Sorry.
Go ahead. Okay, I'm just gonna go. I tease you about it because it's like, oh, sacrificial pact, but there are games when I play Warlock, because I was also playing Zoo this week, and where I'm like, I just need a teensy bit more health against this hunter, where I can maybe like push out one more tap, and then I'll be able to stabilize and whatnot. And so, and especially with Imp Gang Boss and these little 1/1 imps, turning a 1/1 into a 5 health, I do that a lot of the time. So there's it. I definitely could see how that could find effectiveness.
Yeah, one thing to
And
add,
it costs you a card, but like the one class that can deal with costing you a card in some matchups is Warlock, because obviously you're tapping through a whole bunch of your cards every game anyway, and the fact that it enables that is really important.
Yeah, you win the token matchups. You can instantly kill Illidan, which is huge. You know, free wins.
I was just about to mention, the reason this is better than Totemic Might tech is because you're tapping through so many of your cards that at some point you'll probably have cards in your hand, right? So you can negate the negative card advantage from this tech, like when it's useless, just by tapping more. So it's not the end of the world to try like a one of cool tech card in Warlock, but I would be hesitant to do that in a lot of other classes. Although Sacrificial Pact is a class card. So.
Did I say Imp Master? I meant Imp Gang Boss.
Yep.
Okay, my bad. Yep. Hey, if you want to play Imp Master, there are worse cards, definitely.
How dare you say the wrong card? We are professionals, goddammit.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so what else do people have going on? The camps, what have you been playing? I saw you playing Tempo Mage the other day.
Yeah, I've been playing... I'm a big fan of the play whatever you lose to game, or the get mad at your deck and rotate through decks game, so I play a lot of different stuff. On stream, I've been playing a lot of Tempo Mage, where you play 4 secrets. You play Mirror Entity, Duplicate, Counterspell, and Ice Block, and you play one of all of them. Wow. And that leads your opponent to be... One, it improves your like Freeze Mage matchup. Ice Block does. The other 3 are pretty self-explanatory. They're good secrets. It improves your Combo Druid matchup, your Ice Block matchup, and OTK Warrior matchup. And your opponent plays around Mirror Entity and Counterspell. I've had people dump coin into Ice Block and Duplicate, and it just does nothing. And then they play like a crappy minion I can ping off, and it also does nothing. And people just play around secrets, so it's really fun testing that in the mind games aspect of ladder. So I've been playing that a lot, and I've also been playing a lot of Fatigue Mage. I did a video series for TS on it. We can talk a little bit about that later. But Fatigue Mage is a super fun deck, and it's super great against Zoo, which is a lot of the meta right now.
Well, on the other token, I've been playing Zoo, but I haven't been playing a normal Zoo. I've been playing like an anti-Zoo Zoo, which began, it was my own thing. I was very proud of myself. I'm like, oh, look at me creating this, and then I watched Trump, and he basically took my idea and like made it infinitely better. And so I was just like, I'm just gonna copy Trump because he knows what he's doing. So yeah, I've been playing that, and I was playing it because it's like, okay, I thought Zoo was really prevalent, but I haven't been running into any Zoo. When you meet Zoo, the deck destroys. And obviously, if in case anyone in the chat's wondering, on the VOD on YouTube, we're gonna have all the deck lists that we're talking about in the description for reference if you want to go look them up later. But yeah, it destroys.
That seems like a lot of work.
It destroys because it's got that demon synergy. It's naturally just way slower than Zoo and whatnot, but it really destroys Zoo, and it wins against other stuff. You know, Druid is not the best, but it'll do, definitely.
The other tip that I have for you guys in the new Hearthstone mobile meta is playing Nosdormu.
Oh yeah.
That card just absolutely shreks mobile users.
Destroys them.
And that's just obvious. That's an auto-include in every deck from now on, so we probably don't even need to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Camps, you said last week you were down to rank 5, I think. How are you doing this week?
I'm at rank 3 right now. I play a little bit off stream. Again, I was Innkeeper on the second day, and it's just been a huge downward spiral of me trying to test new cards and having fun with them. I lost my final boss of Legend to Thorson on the second day. I lost to Thorson again yesterday, where my opponent double innervated it. I managed to kill it. I was playing Control Warrior. On turn 5, he played Dr. Boom, which I also managed to kill. And then on turn 6, he comboed and killed me. So... I've been having a lot of fun laddering. Thorson in particular has a warm spot in my heart. Yeah.
You want to know what's crazy is actually I was going through my deck list. I don't have Thorson in any of my 9 deck slots. And I'm sure that's just because I suck, but I do not like that card.
Are you playing 9 aggro decks? Like 8 different versions of Face Hunter and then Zoo? Or?
Well, I normally have the top slot reserved for Ramp Druid, but I decided to take it out because I wanted to make a random deck to play at school. But yes, I mostly aggro for them, which is weird because I really like control, but aggro ladder is so fast. I've been stuck at 5, close to rank 5, because basically the only way I can get legend is I find a deck and then I just play the hell out of it until I basically know it inside out, and then that usually costs me 5-1. Like the last season it was mid-range paladin, but now I'm burnt out on mid-range paladin. Even though I know it so well, I just don't want to play it because it's the same thing. So it's a tough life.
Just one thing to note, I see a lot of people asking questions in Twitch chat. We will be doing a Q&A at the end, and we'll be trying to get to all of you guys, so save your questions till then.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you were, say, to pose a question, like Move4679 were asking in this current at this current point in time, what is the most consistent deck for laddering? Does anyone have any input into that?
Honestly, like I was saying, Zoo is really solid.
Zoo is very solid.
Yeah, really good right now. Things like being able to abusive or power overwhelming and destroy, for instance, a druid's really big taunt, stuff like that. You can remove threats pretty easily, but keep chugging out threats. And it doesn't totally auto lose to Face Hunter, so it's like, why would you not play that right now? Is my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Zoo at the moment, sort of around where I am, and I think I'm not very good at the mirror match, so I'm not playing Zoo. For me, the most stable deck is always what you're most comfortable with. As there are so many viable deck choices, the most important thing to me when laddering is, what are you comfortable with? What do you know intimately? What deck do you know all your matchups and all the cards in your deck? And you know, if you have 10 cards left in your deck, what percentage chance you have to draw the card that you need. Like that deck familiarity is the most important thing. So that deck for me is Ramp Druid, or sort of mid-range Druid, I guess it's called. Double combo, playing Thorson. So, you know, that's the deck that I have the most number of wins with, and so that's what I always default to. And then I just like playing around with other decks. So I'm playing, as I said, I'm playing that mid-range. It's RNG Warlock basically, because I'm really loving the Bane of Doom. Loving/hating.
I think one piece of advice real quick when you're playing something like that, like Ramp Druid or a deck that you're comfortable with, is not to get too discouraged when you lose to some crazy combo or something like that. Don't try to change the deck, just keep playing, because it's going to be, your RNG is going to even out. Like on stream I was playing Zoo, I think. I lost to a light spawn that my opponent I was playing Face Hunter, and I had an explosive trap, and my opponent doubled the health of his light spawn a bunch of times, and then Divine Spirited it, whatever the combo is called. I don't know, I don't play those cards are bad. He had a 27 light spawn. And I was at 27, and I had an explosive trap up. I'm like, okay, he can't kill me because it'll turn into a 25-25. Then he power word shielded, and I just got killed. But I think the important thing to remember is crazy stuff is going to happen on ladder. If you find like a list on, say, a website like tempostorm.com that someone hit legend with, you can play that list, and as long as you learn that deck, you play it well, you can hit legend. As long, you just don't quit. Just you know, if you're having bad RNG, take a break. But it'll even out. There's no need to try to change decks too much. Just because you lose to something crazy.
Yeah.
I think just with the prevalence of RNG in this game, game to game, you are not going to be consistent. Shit is going to happen, like weird stuff is going to happen. You are going to have those druids who innovate out a Thorson on turn 3 and you just can't deal with it. Like there's a whole bunch of crap that's going to happen to you. But over 200, 300 games, you will see some sort of consistency there for you. So I think that's an important thing. When you're talking about being stable and consistent, think about your whole ladder climb. Don't think about 3 to 5 games.
Absolutely.
Cool. So guys, I need your advice. I'm playing in a tournament next week. The meta is something like 20% Druid, 18% Hunter, 18% Mage, and then 10% Warlock. So and then there's like, you know, very small amounts of the other classes. What should I play? Have you got tips for me for tournament play versus ladder play?
Camps, you should start. I think you know more about this than I do.
All right, yeah, I've been playing a lot of conquests and like ESL type things, just against friends to practice. And my conquest lineup, which was actually warrior, warlock, and druid, it got completely destroyed because the really cool thing about warrior was if your opponent had rogue or mage, you just won out, you won. And now that rogue has sort of declined with BRM, the two most popular decks now are druid and mage, either mech mage. Or tempo sometimes. It's usually not freeze mage, although it can be. Some people do bring that.
Freeze is popular too.
Freeze is pretty popular too, yeah. But like that's the 1 out of 3, and the other 2 matchups are bad for warrior. So druid and mage are the most popular conquest decks right now. So you want to pick decks that are good against those and counter those. And if you have a few decks that are good against both those 2 decks, then you just have the last deck, whatever the person decides to bring, and you try to counter that. So Zoo is a really good choice because it's good against both most variations of mage and druid. Face Hunter can win against basically anything, so that's a really good thing to bring if you're not used to playing in the tournament scene. Things in that nature. Druid similarly has a pretty good matchup against everything. So I just say stick with pretty safe decks or decks that are good against druid or mage.
I'm just basically going to second that. I think I don't know a ton about tournament play. I'm mostly a ladder scum, but I could imagine in that specific kind of a meta, a slower Zoo, maybe not specifically the deck I was talking about, but a slower version of Zoo with more demons. You get Traxxas, Mal'Ganis will do really, really well there. Obviously, like 2 Hellfires or something destroys. Can wreck mage boards like most often, especially against mage, mech mage, things like of that variety. Even tempo mage for the most part. A Hellfire will clear most everything. Shredders, Curantors, all the 2/3 mechs. And at the same time, you can keep the card draw. It loses. It has issues with Face Hunter sometimes if you draw poorly, but it's really consistent. And I think against those kind of decks, you could find success with it.
Yeah, cool. I thought I read Bunny Muffin's, shout out to him, article on tempostorm.com the other day, which was a discussion of qualifying in open bracket tournaments. And basically the pitch is that you are playing, upwards of about 10, 11 games, and you need to win every single one of those games to qualify, because there are such high numbers of people that try to get into these qualification tournaments, and then they only sort of let you into the tournament if you make top 2. So his argument was basically play a whole bunch of play decks that are designed to exploit variance. So he's playing a lot of Ragnaros. He played Druid because there's a certain amount of variance there with whether you draw Wild Growth or not. And if you just draw your cards in the right order in Druid, then it's pretty unstoppable.
Yeah.
And I really liked the idea of that because his argument was basically if you end up with 4 tournament results, it's much better to come second, last place, and last place than it is to come in the middle 4 times, because coming in the middle does absolutely nothing for you, whereas at least even though if you end up coming last twice, coming in the top 2 means you actually qualify for the tournament. So you exploit the variance there by picking decks that do well on certain days, and on those days hopefully it gives you enough luck to sort of get through to the top. Do you guys like that idea? Or?
Yeah, no, there's definitely, like I said, I'm more of a conservative player when it comes to deck building and stuff, so I tend to lean away from the variance, but I definitely could see the logic behind that, because if it really is, it's bang or bust. It's like you either get first or second, or it doesn't matter, so might as well go all in on getting incredibly lucky than it is to just kind of fizzle out and not do okay,
Yep.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and especially in the really huge open tournaments, the ones that have 1,000 participants, chances are, if you're a legend player or you're really comfortable with the tournament scene, even if you're playing some pretty risky decks, your first couple opponents, just based on statistics, are probably going to be around rank 8 or 10. somewhere between those ranks, just based on like the percentages of players in those ranks. Like at the end of the season, it tells you are in this percentile of players based on your ranks. So sometimes in the early rounds, or if you have a losing record, you're going to see some decks that aren't really really too common. You might see some decks playing, like people just might not have the cards for like warriors, so they'll be playing some other stuff instead. So in the first rounds, those variance decks won't hurt you too much, and then after that, you just need to get lucky.
Like Pharrell Williams. That was tasteless, I'm sorry. I want to see some foreheads in chat for that.
More like fish.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of TempoStorm.com, do we want to talk a little bit about our articles that we did this week?
No.
Camsh, I noticed that you did. Well, I want to talk about them. I'm a terrible corporate shill. I noticed that you did a Fatigue Mage video that was so good that it got plagiarized by 2p.com. And by that I mean it got posted on their website with some credit.
You made it, man.
Yeah, so I actually just found out about this like an hour ago, but apparently they just like, however, their website is like pretty bad, like it's pretty like basic HTML and CSS. So I just wrote an article that said Fatigue Mage, and then they linked my YouTube videos one by one on their site, so you didn't have to like click anywhere to go there. And then there was no description or writing at all. It was just an article that said Fatigue Mage. It didn't even say my name in the title. It said my name like halfway down the page in tiny lettering, and it just had my videos. I don't know like what that was about. I was not contacted. I didn't even know this happened. So that was a pretty interesting experience. But yeah, the deck was really fun.
Yeah, so just to be clear, this was your article that you posted on TempoStorm.com as an original video for TempoStorm.com, produced for them, paid for by them, and then it just ended up on another website.
Yep. 2p.com, guys.
Let's have a discussion about that in a little bit, but let's focus on the article for the moment. What did you have for us re-Fatigue Mage?
So the deck did pretty well. I did 6 gameplay videos just because I played against a lot of aggro on ladder. I went 5-1 in the video series. I have a few more losses than that on stream, like my record, but I think the deck is really good against Zoo, which is a lot of the meta, just because you play your Death Lords, you play heal bots, you copy them. And the deck is so fun to play, right? Just the feeling of making someone burn cards because they have too many in their hand. The only problem I found with the deck with Thaurissan is it made everything so cheap that I went a little bit too crazy. I've actually had a lot of games where, because everything's so cheap, I can play like a lot of Cold Lights and Echoes in the same turn, and it's really hard to manage cards, because everything gives me more cards, and my hand just fills up too much, and I end up echoing or duplicating cards that I don't want, and I end up burning cards. So Thaurissan is really good for the deck, but in that respect, it made me go a little bit too crazy. That sometimes hurts. But
that sounds like such a first world problem. You're like, my cards are too good, I can play too many of them, I have too many cards in my hand.
It's the priest problem.
Like, I had a hand today where I have 2 Thaurissan's in my hand. I have 2 Thaurissan's on the board, but the Thaurissan's were played first, and I had like 9 cards in my hand, so when I echo, it just gives me more Thaurissan's. Thaurissan's don't win games, right? Like, because I was playing as Freeze Mage, and he would just like freeze the board and then kill me. I needed to copy my heal bots and my oracles to burn them out. No, but the deck is really fun, and my favorite part of the deck is actually bluffing Freeze Mage. So you just coin duplicate on turn 2, and then you like pass, and then they don't expect you to play like Death Lord the next turn or anything. They think you're Freeze Mage. So like a Warlock will start tapping, they'll start putting stuff on the board, and then you get to abuse that. I also like pretending you're Mech Mage and threatening them when they play a Zombie Chow, and then like thinking for a long time, then passing even when I don't have a play, because then they're like, oh, he can't put his Mech Warper down because I kill it. Then they similarly like misplay, and I just get a mill amount. So the deck's really fun. It takes a lot of practice. I'm still pretty bad at it, but you know.
It does take a lot of practice to emote correctly. That's for sure. You need to. There are a lot of mind games that can go on. I've played a little bit of Fatigue Mage too, and I love the deck. The problem that I have with it is that you can make a decision turn 3, and then you don't realize that it was a bad decision until turn 25.
Yeah, I can't really help.
Do you think that's fair?
No, yeah.
No, I don't need help with making better decisions. I just and it's great because you sort of go, oh, that was such a misplay 20 turns ago.
Yeah.
But like I guess that time lapse between the two, like you can lose a game and then not even realize it for quite some time.
Yeah, you definitely feel a real disconnect between what you do early, and it takes a lot of work to like get to that point. But it's like Control Warrior, right? Like Control Warrior Mirrors, where you have to like really mize every card and really think about every decision in greater context of the entire game. And some players really enjoy like memorizing every card in their deck and seeing what pops up, or using Tracker and like crossing out the cards individually and running the probabilities. And some people are really into that, and some people want to go smork and hit face. So like it depends on what kind of player you are. The deck's definitely not for everyone, and I even find myself getting tired of it sometimes. Like after a few games, I just like start misplaying with it or get salty. So you know, but it's a fun deck to take a break with for a while, just to like get rid of the normal cancer decks you would play, and it has a decent win rate if you can once you get good at it. So,
is it would you recommend it for laddering just because the games take so long?
I would actually not recommend it for ladder unless if you enjoy the games and you want to play for fun, then like all good for you. You will probably see an increase in your rank once you start getting good at the game. But if you're like really trying to grind out from like rank 5 to legend and you don't really have that much time, this is more of a deck to like take screenshots of or play on stream. Like whereas if you're just like all you care about is results, you definitely want to go for something faster and more consistent.
There's also the psychological effect of that's why I can't play things like Freeze Mage and Fatigue Mage, just because I have this great game against like a Control Warrior, I top deck Ice Lance for lethal or something, and then next game I just get rolled by a Face Hunter, and I'm just like, and when you're at these higher ranks, you don't get bonus stars, so I'm like, oh, well, there goes my star, you know, that sucks. Yeah,
I'm tired of this conversation. Too bad.
Fatigue,
Mech Mage, pretty good. What a seamless transition. Too bad you had an article this week about Mech Mage and adapting it to the meta.
Yep. So basically, I really like Mech Mage. I think it's fast enough to where it is like you can close games out before 5 if you get a really good draw, but it also has the late game just like mageness of the burn cards of the Archmage and Tinnitus that you can still compete with these crazy decks in the late game, and it sort of has the same the frost or the freeze mage effect where at the end of the game you top deck the fireball for perfect lethal and you're just like, yes, you know, it feels great, and it also it's just like really consistent against at the time the decks that were on the ladder. Now I don't recommend it as much because things like Thorzen definitely made the life of a Mech Mage a bit harder because it makes Ramp Druid, which is one of their like it's favored technically, but you'll find in practice sometimes it makes it harder to actually like win these games, because if they ramp out something crazy and you don't have a good answer for it, you're just done. And adapting it to the ladder, it was weird because it's not so much a like other control decks where you can just take a card and if you're seeing this you just switch it out, because it still has a win condition of it needs to rush down the enemy and win early for the most part. It can kind of like, it doesn't completely fizzle out past turn 7, but you still have the ability to eke out a win in the late game. So that basically means it comes down to small decisions like Harvest Golem versus Spider Tank, things like whether or not you want to put Water Elemental or Azure Drake. And so it was definitely, it was a different take. It was way more fun to write because it's a lot less formulaic where you're like, oh, you're seeing Hunters, anti-Killbot, you know, you have to think way more when altering these aggro decks, which is ironic because a lot of people think aggro decks are just idiotic and you just hit face with them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Did you end up putting in the water elementals and stuff?
That it really depends. Like earlier GVG, when it was like Paladin, Warrior, Oil Rogue constantly, Water Elemental was in there all the time. But now, that is definitely like a flavor call. I personally only have one in my Mech Mage deck right now, but I haven't changed it in like a week or so. But if you're seeing Paladins, Rogues, and Warriors, then definitely play it. But if you're seeing like Hunter, yes, they have weapons, but at that point it's basically a 50-50. The freeze comes into play, but not too much. It's definitely a call based on what you're seeing.
Yep. Okay, cool. And then myself, I did an article this week called "How Long Does It Take to Get to Legend," which was looking at this time investment and game investment that it takes for you to get to Legend from sort of rank 5. Because there's a very simple formula: you have to win 26 games from rank 5. More than you lose. So if you have 100% win rate, you only have to win 26 games, which is pretty good. But then we just sort of like analyze that data just to give us some idea of how many games you can expect to play with certain win rates, and then how that affects the time it's going to take you to get to Legend. And I think it's really important. We had a few comments down the bottom that was just like, "Oh, this is not useful unless you're already Legend." And I kind of agree. It's not, the article is not designed to teach you to become Legend. I think it's one of those things that you have to, you just have to be aware of. I'm a fan of having all the information available to me at all times, and it's one of those considerations that you have to sort of factor into your planning when you're deciding to go for Legend. So to be clear, like, you need a win rate that's approximately more than 51% to get to Legend. So if you don't think you can get a win rate above that rate, then don't even bother, and that's fine. Like, or go back to the drawing board and work out how you can get a better win rate to get above 51%. Because if we look at it, like 51%, you're playing approximately like 1,300 games, which is a lot. I know that I only have I've worked it out, I've only got about 100 hours a month maybe to try and hit Legend, so I have to go for a win rate of sort of 51 to 53, and that's it's not easy, but it's definitely not that hard to have a win rate above 50%, and I generally shoot for about 55 just to give myself a little bit more time. But yeah, check it out if you're interested in running to Legend. It's one of those things that gives you like a really good idea of the context around getting to Legend. And if you haven't done it before, just the things that you need to consider on your run there.
Well, okay.
Someone just asked in Twitch chat why I'm not speaking American.
I saw that.
Apologize for that.
I wanted to talk real quick about that. I'm sure everybody saw it on the Hearthstone subreddit, was the that Athene video where he's like, he's basically diverting attention away from the fact that he totally lied and saying that he got in this insane win streak, and instead is saying, oh, it's okay that I lied because Hearthstone is easy, everyone can be good at Hearthstone, which is ridiculous. That whole thread, and in the comment thread, it was so rage-inducing because you just have these people and they're like, yeah, he's basically right. Hearthstone's the easiest game in the world. And I know these guys, they sit at rank 13 and think that Arena is the pinnacle of Hearthstone play, It's like, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, because it personally frustrated the hell out of me.
I think I'm not really down with all what the kids are doing on Twitch these days. But is he not just a troll? Is he not just Casey Tron, but without as bigger boobs?
No, he is.
I think
Go ahead.
we can't disregard that possibility entirely, although I'm a little bit skeptical that he was entirely trolling. The problem is that, like, some of the people that responded to the video had said, like, he's totally right, all these plebs in Legend, like, some of those people are serious. That's the problem I have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I think we're just coming back to it. I think running to Legend is definitely possible if you are sort of pretty average at the game. I think you just need a lot of time. But, I think if you get Legend within the first week, then you are, to me, definitively better. Like, you are good.
Yeah.
I don't think Hearthstone is an easy game. I don't think that, if you got a bunch of monkeys playing on iPads, that they would, one of them would reach Legend.
Yeah. It was mainly the issue that he was saying, like, the game is easy to master, which is, like, ridiculous. That's comparing someone like myself, who has gotten Legend, to someone like Life Coach, who has also gotten Legend, and saying that there's not a disparity between us is ridiculous. He is way better than me. He probably has gotten close to mastering the game. I've gotten Legend, but getting to Legend doesn't mean you've mastered the game, Doesn't mean you've mastered the game mechanics, which is basically what he was saying. He's saying, oh, if I got to Legend, I've mastered the game. done. And then while he was in Legend, he proceeded to flounder down to like the pits of Legend of like 2000s or something.
Right. I think the like the way that the viability of decks work at the moment, like there are, let's say, I'm just going to pick a number, like 10, 12 different viable decks that you can play on ladder. You can reach Legend with any one of those decks. And I think if you pick a deck and just play that deck, let's say Face Hunter, for instance, and you just play that deck consistently over and over again, it's basically like playing against a wall. And you might end up with 1,000 games of Face Hunter and come to the conclusion that it is not that hard to get Legend. And I kind of agree in that context. Like, it's fairly, like, you can just play with one deck, just do it over and over again. You're basically playing the same game over and over again. Like, there's no, you don't get your 4 cards and you're like, oh, I'm going to be control this game. It's just like, more face, more face. So, I think I can see how you could come to that conclusion. But like, different people play in different ways, and I get a lot of I get enjoyment out of trying some limited innovating and trying out different decks.
I don't want to rail.
I don't think it's simple because of that.
I don't want to rail on any one person too much, but an interesting anecdote about Athene is that he was having trouble with one of the BRM heroic bosses because he did not have mind control unlocked, because he did not have priest at level 10. And someone who does not have priest class cards unlocked, who has not played priest at all, is talking about mastering the entirety of Hearthstone and all mechanics. And I just think there is a slight disparity between say Athene and someone who has priest at level 10, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, that then calls into question, how can someone like Athene get to Legend if you have, like, that speaks volumes that you haven't even gotten mind control. Then I personally don't think he got Legend. I think he absolutely had someone else play on his account, but I'm a little more speculative with stuff like that. But it's just ridiculous. It was the whole experience was very annoying to me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he got to Legend, because I think it is quite possible to get there with, I would say, only slightly above average win rate. But yeah, I can't really comment too much on him because I haven't been following him.
I mean, he does this. He goes around to different game communities. He does shady, weird stuff, and then leaves them and moves on to another one. It's just what he does, and so it wasn't surprising, but that doesn't make it any less annoying.
Right. I'm literally quoting just a really reputable source, reddit.com, but I believe he also does a lot with charity as well. So I thought it was an internet character that was saying this almost. And I think in large part you have to view what people do on Twitch as a performance. I think people aren't necessarily themselves all the time when you're being broadcast to thousands of people, or in fact 51 people. You know. Yep. So you've just got to sort of take what people are doing with a grain of salt.
That's fair.
Cool. So, if I want to play a little hypothetical game with you guys. If we could add one thing to Hearthstone, or take one thing away, what would it be? And I'm talking mechanics, powers, that sort of thing. I don't want necessarily like bring a card, like don't talk about one card, like don't tell me that you want to nerf Dr. Boom, but something with a little bit more depth. What can we do to Hearthstone to make it a better game? Who wants to go first?
Camp, you go. You got this.
Okay, I'll just jump in. I might think of something more broad later. You said they'll talk about one card, but I would actually unnerf Undertaker. I'm not like an evil person. I think it created a very healthy meta where like 50% of people were playing it and the other 50% of people were trying to counter it. And I think that's really good for the game. And then you have like the mirror matches of like counter Undertaker versus counter Undertaker, or Undertaker versus Undertaker. And you have like a sort of rock, paper, scissors ladder. And when you get really good at rock versus rock, then you just get a stream through ladder. So I think it's really good where there's like a couple dominant decks and you get really good at mirrors, and that just pushes you to Legend.
I can't hear this being said right now. I think Undertaker was the worst thing to happen to Hearthstone in a long time. I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying, but I do not agree with it.
I don't understand how you can say that a meta that is 50% one thing and then 50% trying to counter the other thing, that thing, is healthy.
Yeah.
Especially when we have 9 classes and the game is obviously deliberately designed to to be more than rock paper scissors. Like, they're getting a few other implements in there.
So I think I just showed you guys how making ridiculous and untrue statements gets me attention, and that's why people do it. So that was a parallel back to a theme.
Oh, fuck you! You totally got me.
Wow.
I didn't think Undertaker was healthy. Who the hell thinks that?
You're a wild dude, man. All right.
You're the biggest troll.
All right. Well, something I would like to see. Kibler wrote an article. Brian Kibler, famous Hearthstone streamer, great Magic player, about hero powers sort of limiting decks and limiting what the game can do. I think something as Hearthstone expands significantly is perhaps creating alternate hero powers, because they said they want to create more classes, but they didn't say anything about hero powers. This is obviously far in the future where the game is stagnated and just printing new cards won't create as much excitement. You could give each hero an alternate hero power just to change it up a little bit. Like Hunter could get something that would make cards like Gazrilla more viable, and Warrior could get something that would be better in an aggro Warrior shell. Things like that, I just think that's a possibility to consider in the far future of Hearthstone, where we change hero powers as well as just adding new cards.
Yep. Is that something like you foresee, you build a deck and then every time you queue with Hunter you sort of pick the hero power to go along with the deck, or...?
I think as you built the deck, at the end it would give you an option of which hero power you would want, and you'd be able to select that, and that would sort of lock in the interface with that deck, since you're obviously building decks to correspond to the proper hero power.
That could be cool.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. It'd definitely make different, like the different matchups much more interesting, I guess, because, you know, it'd effectively give two versions of more than two versions of every class.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you would go, like where the design space is for 2 mana hero powers that can get repeated. I said in our pilot episode last week that I think on paper most of the hero powers are fairly balanced. Like 2 health is equivalent to 2 armor, equivalent to 2 damage, equivalent to 1 damage that can affect the board. So I'm not really sure, like, it would be hard to come up with even more, like another 9 hero powers, I guess, that fit into that sort of paradigm.
Basically, the only thing I would think about changing would be the mana cap. I don't have a ton of outside card game experience, but I do feel like sometimes the mana cap can get a little restricting. I think you'd have to definitely address cards like Wild Growth and Innervate, because I think they'd get way too strong. But I think that it would make the game crazy. It would make it absolutely insane. But I think it does restrict the game in areas where there is room for bigger, cooler, exciting things to happen.
Yeah. I think we kind of saw them change the mana cap with Thaurissan.
Yeah, I mean, that's functionally what that card did, which is why it's so insane. But the fact that it's a card means that it's restricted to, unfortunately, not every deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my suggestion, hi Blizzard, thanks for listening, is to have like tournaments inside the client. I'm coming from a Magic the Gathering background, and that was the only reason I was stuck with the online client for so long. Basically what they do is they run what are called dailies. So they're at a specific time every single day, and you pay a fee of how much is it? It's like $6, right? And then if you win, you then play sort of you play 4 games, and if you win 3 games, then you end up with roughly slightly more than your the fee that you paid to get in back, and then if you win 4 games, then you end up getting quite a good reward. And I think something like that is integral to Hearthstone's future, because it gives us a more consistent way to judge skill. People who are consistently 4-0ing dailies in Hearthstone, you know, that will give us a lot more to analyze there. I think it makes sense for Blizzard because they can make money off it, and the amount of money that I spent on Hearthstone would go up exponentially if that sort of system was implemented.
Yeah, tournament system would be great. There's definitely room for it in the game, and I'm sure it's definitely something they're looking at. But yeah, that would alter the game incredibly. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. And to get Twitch chat to love me again, something I'd like to add is more deck slots.
More what?
More deck slots.
I don't
No, but
think
like
that's possible.
actually, now that BRM's out, I have like it used to be you'd only have like 1 to 2 viable versions of a deck, but now there's like 4 really cool mage decks you can play. There's 2 really cool warrior decks you can play. There's a lot of different warlock variants, and you just have so many of variants of every class that you have to like rebuild a deck like every 5 minutes if you're laddering and want to try something new. Um, and it's just, that's problem is just going to get worse and worse as more cards are released.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the point to make is that sorry, tournaments would be anti-casual in a way. I wonder if there's a room in the future to have like a Hearthstone Lite, which is what you automatically download as the first option, like when you start on mobile, for instance, and it has the tutorial and you can play on ladder and that kind of thing, and you'll queue up. But then there's maybe a you know, Hearthstone proper that you sort of download if you want to. If well, it's sort of the next step. It's like, oh, you know, obviously in Hearthstone Lite you would have no more than 9 deck slots because that's incredibly confusing and it's just too much to compute at once.
Yeah.
But then once you get to this, you sort of upgrade to this new platform, you could maybe get 10 deck slots. Can you think of that?
Yeah, I mean there's a world where that exists. It's not ours, but
but yeah, that's just a crazy idea that I had that maybe might be like that's what I would start thinking of. That's the first stop that I would have if I wanted to sort of fix this, like competitive versus casual tension that we seem to have at the moment.
yeah.
I would definitely agree with you. And as far as tournaments goes, I like to see not just dailies, but like bigger things. Like on Magic Online, you can qualify for the Pro Tour and things of that nature. Like there should be tournaments for BlizzCon points. There should be tournaments to qualify for like Blizzard-related tournaments. Just because if you ever play in like ESL or Gosu Cup, like the tournament's really nice and the organizers do the best with what they have, but you have to screenshot all your games to make sure no one reports anything incorrectly. You have to go through their website and have Hearthstone open at the same time. There's just a lot of things that would be more convenient if they were in client for larger tournaments to try to get bigger in the Hearthstone scene.
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Taking a trip down memory lane.
Oh goodness.
What were the first decks that you guys built? What terrible card choices did you make? Show me that you have improved as a player, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Moonfire or whatever the 5 mana.
Oh, the incredibly busted 0 mana 2 damage.
Oh no, I'm sorry. The what is it? Starfall. Is that what it is? No. The
Yep.
5 mana deal 2 damage to everything or deal 5 damage to 1.
Yep, I think that's Starfall.
Okay. That card was a huge trap for me when I was first starting out. I'm like, this card is flexible, it's good, it's gotta be insane, right? But it's just so bad. And I kept putting it in all my Druid decks, and I thought that things like Fairy Dragon were also incredibly OP. And so I was putting those on my deck. And my first Druid deck looked like an incredibly gimpy version of Ramp Druid. But you could see the idea was kind of there a little bit.
The story of how I started playing Hearthstone is actually pretty interesting, and it relates to my first deck. So I used to play Magic a ton. I still play a lot, but mostly bigger events. And when Hearthstone first launched, and for a while, and even still, there's a pretty big like sentiment or sort of a joke in the Magic community where it's like it's Kitty Stone. It's just an easier version of this, which I don't think is true at all. But I was one of the people that like made that joke before I started playing Hearthstone. And I had some friends who played Magic, some friends in school who played Hearthstone. I was like, hey guys, this is really easy. I bet I could hit Legend my like first month playing, as long as I get like $30 to spend on cards or whatever. So my first month, I bought Nax, and then I looked up a guide for Undertaker Hunter, and I just played that. And that was actually my first deck in Hearthstone. I know, I'm an awful person.
Oh my god.
So
you
I
really
haven't
don't want
moved.
Twitch chat to love you at all,
Yeah,
do you?
jeez.
But yeah, and I actually did end up hitting Legend, which was sweet. But basically, I'm disappointed that I missed out on my like new player experience because I just net decked, and my whole goal was just to ladder for like a long time so I could win the boat with my friend, which I did. But I ended up falling in love with Hearthstone, and I started playing way more, and I started playing Magic, and I just enjoyed the game so much right now. But yeah, my first deck was good. It was net decked, and I'm an awful person.
Um, I think like I did the same thing. I definitely Googled a few net decks because that's always there's a Patrick Chapin quote. He's a famous Magic the Gathering player, and it says something like, "If you don't at least net deck 50%, then you have no brain, and if you don't brew at least 25%, then you have no heart." And I think that is somewhat applicable to all card games. There is an established basis for decks, and people have done the work and the testing. Why would you waste that? So I don't think net decking is bad for that reason. But then you do sort of like tweaking them a little bit is definitely what I like to do, and that's that 25%. It's probably more like 10% for me, but I do like to do that tweaking stuff. On the subject of like really bad first decks, I saw Hobgoblin and was like, that card is the best. I tried to make Hobgoblin work for literally the last 2 months. It is definitely still my pet card, and I think I'm waiting to see it be good at some point. I really like it as a card. I saw a few like versions with Warlock and stuff, but I was actually playing it in Druid just thanks to the Innovate and being able to get it out. Basically, the reason why it didn't work is because in Magic, if you play like a 2-card combo, you have a fairly high chance during the game of drawing it. But the problem with Hobgoblin is it doesn't win you the game straight away, and a 1 in 15 chance to draw one and something else isn't even that good, and it's also fairly easy to remove. So it wasn't that great. But I was playing Wisp because of the infinite value.
Oh yeah, it's literally infinite value.
Oh, 0 mana 3/3. Like, why is that not in every deck?
I don't
know. Do we want to discuss anything else before we get into talking to Twitch chat?
I think we should talk a little bit about, now that it's on mobile, about talking to people about Hearthstone and sort of the sentiment in the general community about gaming, and just like telling like one of your friends or something like, hey, I play this game for 8 hours a day and yell at my computer screen when I lose.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. How are you guys finding that people react when you tell them that you play Hearthstone?
Basically, as it is with most video games, people will always react negatively because unless you are in the gamer sphere, telling someone that you play video games is gonna be immediately a turnoff of some extent. They're gonna be like, "Oh, this guy's inside all the time. The Doritos, Mountain Dew, all he's screaming at his computer screen." But once people just don't understand, and I think that's kind of just it's a hard part of being a gamer and trying to get people to take you seriously is people are just ignorant of what the scene is like. People don't understand things like Twitch chat. They don't understand even tournaments like professional. I was talking to my family about the League of Legends World Championship and how the money that's at stake and stuff, and it just blew their minds. They're like, I don't understand it, but people don't understand how fleshed out and how real it is. So when you start actually taking the time to explain the game, talk about what it does, what's behind it, and how real it can be, it's nice to see people's eyes light up and acknowledge that there is a complete other side of the world that they're missing.
Yeah, I'm a senior in high school, and for the most part, people have been like pretty accepting. People found out that like someone found my videos, put it on Facebook or something. Everybody's like, "Whoa, this is this guy." I actually got interviewed for Yearbook about Hearthstone, which I think is kind of cool. It's going in the talents portion.
Ooh.
I don't know if Go on Face is a talent, but I'm pretty good at it. I do have one sort of like horror story though. I was talking to a couple of grills, one of whom I'd actually gone to a dance with before. And they were playing like Trivia Crack or whatever, and one of the questions was, what's the first level in Sonic? Gotta go fast. And I was like, hey, that's Green Hill Zone, because I didn't know. Yeah. They're like, oh, you play a lot of games? I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, why do you play games? I'm like, well, it's pretty cool, actually. I work for this website called Tempo Storm now, and like it's pretty sweet, and it's like more than a hobby now. And they're like, she just turned to me with like cold dead eyes, and she said, your job exists because of bad parenting, and then just turned and walked away. So that is probably like the worst thing I've ever heard in regards to that. And I think it's
So
pretty
many.
sad that people still have that outlook on something that's just like a little bit like a sport. And it hurts a little bit inside, but in general, I think people are starting to accept it more, and it's growing to be a part of society.
Yeah, especially these really frustratingly ignorant people. They're like, oh, this is never going to be a thing. And then in a couple of years, when you're watching Dota on ESPN, stick it to the man. Show them support.
Yeah,
Esports.
absolutely. I think Dota is a great thing to bring up here because that was what introduced me to the concept of this being a viable career and something that you can make enough money off to live on. Like the last TI4 was played for millions and millions. Fuck.
There's so many
I should
Bible
not look
thoughts
at
in
Twitch
chat.
chat whilst talking.
Oh.
Yeah, the TI4 was played for $10 million, so like that's an insane amount of money, and there is so much money going into esports nowadays that I think it's becoming legitimate. And for people that follow the scene, we sort of think of it as being super legit, but like these people that don't end up in Twitch chat all the time or aren't following the scene, like parents, family, friends, you just sort of need to sort of explain this to them.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely a little bit of even amongst my friends, there's a little bit of like, how legit are you? You're probably not. Like playing this game, you're playing this game so much, but is it really a thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best part is us early in the Twitch chat and stuff. We're all hipsters now because we were in on the ground floor. Back when you're 60 and everyone's playing League of Dota, you can be like, oh, back in my day we used to sit in Twitch chat and spam Bible thumps, and then the kids are like, Grandpa, shut up. But I mean, it's fun. We're in on the ground floor, and it's exciting to see this stuff grow from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Have we got anything more to say on that? Anyone had any more terrible experiences? Too bad.
I mean, I actually have had a lot. People are so like, I don't bring it up either, which is why it's so crazy that people have bad opinions about it. But I'm like, hey, my name's PJ, and I play Hearthstone. Because it just comes off weird, right? But people still manage to just give me these sour looks, and you can tell that the condescension when they're talking to you. I guess I kind of asked for it. Junior year, I did a report on esports because they're like, hey, you have to write a persuasive paper explaining this thing, and I was talking about why esports is legitimate. And my teacher was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. She literally told me, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And which is shitty because the entire class was totally, like, they loved it. They thought it was so cool. And some kids like, yeah, my buddy lives in, like, Finland, and he plays League of Legends professionally. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And so we were kind of like talking about it, and she's like, she was older, obviously, so I'm sure she didn't get it, but it was crushing because you saw some kids immediately were like, oh, the teacher thinks it's dumb. Okay, I think it's dumb. So that's about the worst that I've gotten.
Yeah, there's perhaps a little bit of a generational thing there.
Yeah.
Like I just sort of, we're naturally predisposed to thinking about stuff with computers as being pretty legitimate, just because we've grown up with them. But I think that generation that didn't is going to struggle with it for quite some time.
Oh, absolutely.
There's going to be a lot of get a real job talk.
Yep. For
these kids who grow up and they're like, instead of saying, I want to be a famous baseballer, they're like, I want to stream on Twitch all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy the levels of people will go to kind of like illegitimize what you do. It was a long time ago, but there was a Dota 2 pro. I don't know who it was. It might have been like Admiral Bulldog or something, but he was trying to cross, I think, the Canadian to U.S. border, and you need like a work visa or whatever or something. I'm not sure how foreign travel works, but you need to give a reason why you're going there, and he's like, I play video games professionally, and the guard's like, that's not a thing. He's like, you can't go in. And he's like, I have the forms right here. This is a job. He's like, no, it's not. You just and he did miss the tournament because he was freaking late because that asshole didn't like his job. So, oh god, that stuff makes me so frustrated.
Well, yeah, that's happened on more than one occasion. I can think of, sort of 5 or so instances just off the top of my head of people like maybe not being able to go to tournaments. This is mostly for Dota 2, but maybe not be able to go to tournaments because they can't get their visas. There's sort of a discussion. Like, I can just see that they hand it into like the government department that's responsible for visas, and the visa department just gets it and is like, "What? You want to come into our country and play video games? And that's a job?" And then they just sort of like rip it up into tiny pieces and throw it in the bin. And I think there's probably quite some time before that starts happening as the order of response.
Definitely. All right.
Cool. We might throw to the interactive part of this podcast now, if anyone wants to go. If you want to ask us a question, anything really. How does Too Bad get his hair so great?
Is it great?